Bailey, have you ever just wanted to dance? Like, really dance?
All the
Like,
time.
For weeks on end, dance in the streets till you can't stand anymore kind of dancing? Until
No.
you can't catch your breath and just collapse from exhaustion?
You've lost me.
I figured. I sure hope that you haven't wanted to do any of that. And I'm sure all the people I'm going to tell you about never wanted to either. This week, we're going to talk about the dancing plague of 1518.
Throwback!
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, ooh. Body like it's 1518. When I think of like dance compulsions, I think, have I ever felt the need to just rage for weeks? Maybe. In like peak, dance floor euphoria. And I'm like, I want this feeling forever. Yeah. But like then you get sweaty and you get tired and your feet hurt and you're like, I want to go home. And
I can truly say I did not expect this part of,
No.
of the conversation to happen. I truly did not anticipate this, so this is
I'm
really
bearing
great.
my soul about my urge to dance, Madison. If you could please be a little more tender with me, I would really appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Thanks for disclosing that and trusting us with that information.
You asked me if I had felt the urge to dance.
That was really brave.
Forever.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, yeah, in my most stoked state, yes.
I'm going to go ahead and take out all the other rhetorical questions I have in here.
Oh, come on.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Have we started the podcast yet?
That's Bailey, and I'm Madison.
and this is Calamity Janes.
This is our weekly disaster podcast. Most weeks. It's supposed to be weekly. Sorry about last week. Bonnie and I had colds.
Have you redeemed your free drink?
Yes, definitely.
Did anyone email?
No.
Good. Thank you all. You're pros. You are experts and you listen to the terms and conditions. Thank you.
But very sorry about that. Thank you, Bailey, for recording a quick and hilarious snippet. So our best friends did not forget about us. But very sorry about all of that. Life happens sometimes. So, this is our thing. This is our podcast. Welcome. I'm going to tell you a story now.
And I'm apparently going to bare my soul.
Bailey might have had like a small mental break earlier in the day.
You asked a question about whether I could dance for forever. And I need you to know I really love dancing. All the time.
I know you do.
I love dancing.
I know you love dancing.
I will dance under any condition. I will. I love dancing.
I know.
And
just wait till Finn's a little bit older and he'll dance with you. It's so much fun.
Oh, I'm so excited for it, and that's why when you asked the question, have you ever wanted to dance for forever? I had to really give it a pause because.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on if that's okay with you.
Please do. I'd love to know more about this disaster.
Okay. First, have you heard of the dancing plague of 1518?
Sure have. Yep.
You have?
Sure have. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sounds like a blast.
Great. Okay. This might be a little more lighthearted than some of our other stories, but it is speculated that people died. So it's still very much a disaster, and we will handle it as such.
Sure will.
So let's get situated to start off. This bizarre event took place from July to September 1518.
Okay.
In Strasbourg, in what is now modern-day France, in what was the Holy Roman Empire at the time.
Okay.
One day in July, a woman named Frau Tropheu.
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm looking up what they wore in the Holy Roman Empire.
Anyways, she walked into the street and just started dancing.
Can relate.
Like, really putting her whole body into it, kind of dancing.
Honestly, as you should.
And the bizarre thing was she just couldn't stop. She danced and danced and danced until she collapsed from exhaustion.
How long did that take? Did
I'm not sure, probably several hours.
Okay.
And after she collapsed, she rested for a little while and then got back up and started again. And this cycle continued for days, and no more than a week later, 30 people had joined her.
3-0.
3-0. So now we've got 30 people dancing in the street, dancing against their will, dancing compulsively.
Okay.
So before this starts to sound like a medieval flash mob, it wasn't. They really couldn't stop dancing, no matter what. They gyrated compulsively until they were injured and completely exhausted.
I don't know if any of your research recovered this, but what were the dance moves of the era? I'm curious. Okay, your face tells me, first of all, your face shut that question down real fast. I need you to yes and me right now, and that face was like the opposite of that.
I'm sorry. Let me yes and you. It was exclusively crumping.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. This is the visual now that I've looked up the wardrobe and I have a list of moves. Okay, we can move on. I really need to picture this.
Oh my gosh. That's actually, it's a fair question. I never saw anyone talk about what kind of dancing it was. But with a little more details that I'll share with you in a couple of minutes, it might have been actually some of their more traditional dances at the time. Although I think the people who were dancing in the streets were really truly just gyrating compulsively. But just hang on and we'll speculate a little bit more in a little while. Okay. So even after they were injured and completely exhausted, they kept going.
Injured?
Civic and religious leaders suspected demonic possession, which is kind of to be expected for that time.
Yeah.
But from there, they somehow decided that the solution was more dancing.
They collectively, like the community said, just dance it out.
The people who were in charge of keeping order and peace in this area were like, you know what? I've got a fever and the only solution is more cowbell. And they were like, here's to more dancing.
Then the
you got to
Bee Gees
dance
started
it out.
Playing. Okay.
So they organized guild halls for the compulsive movers and enlisted musicians and professional dancers to keep those afflicted moving until this bizarre plague subsided. So they gave them a safe place to go dance. And they said, this is probably just something that needs to work itself out. And you just got to dance it out, whatever it is. And so they did.
They were like, this function is not up to code. We need invitations. We need a band. We need a venue.
Yeah.
Flowers,
so they hired
lighting.
all those people and just had this ongoing
Shindig.
silent rave. Well, it's not a silent rave because they had musicians there. They just had this ongoing rave for weeks.
Have you heard of silent raves?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I would totally do it.
I've never been to one. I have heard of them though. For those listeners who might not know what we're talking about, it's where you put on headphones and everyone's listening. Everyone attending this rave is listening to the same music, but via headphones. So you could walk into a ballroom with a bunch of people dancing to no music because they're all wearing headphones. I do wonder what that experience is like. I've heard it's a great time.
I would totally do it.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so as one may imagine, or not, honestly, who even knows what to expect from this story at this point, those measures only attracted more dancers, and soon nearly 400 people were afflicted with the dancing plague.
This is what's wild to me, based on what you've told us and what I know of this story, is that there weren't any kind of casual dancers. No one saw this and was like, sure, I can appreciate a good time, let's dip in, dip out, like an average party. This was like, once you were afflicted, because it was
really like a disease. Like they were catching this compulsive, their bodies were not under their own control. So it was like they were catching a disease, and the symptom was compulsive dancing.
You might get to this later. Is there any other disease that's maybe more relatable? Can you catch physical like ticks in the same way. I'm trying to liken this to something that might be on a smaller scale that I've experienced or heard. Because dancing to me, it's like, it is very, when I dance, I make a choice to like go in and dance, you know?
Yes.
The level of dancing, whether it's a step touch or like a full on, you know, it's something that I start and stop.
I think it's really just your body starts to move kind of against your will. I don't know if it was like this urge. Have you ever had like restless leg before?
No. And I feel so fortunate. I know that's like a pregnancy symptom, and
yeah, I've had it when I would take Unisom. I would have what I think was restless leg, and apparently that's a really common side effect from taking Unisom, especially in pregnancy. And so I stopped because it was like torture trying to go to sleep.
Yeah,
but it's like you're laying there, but it was like my legs were desperate to move, and I like couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't stop squirming around because it was just this like, it was like torture. It wasn't painful, but it's such a weird sensation with a part of your body telling you to do something. And so I kind of likened it to that, to like, we'll talk about what could have potentially caused this, because it is weird, and it's so unlike another disease that I could really compare it to. But I imagine these people might have started getting like a sensation like that that just overcame their ability to control their bodies. I mean, these people would dance until their feet were like swollen and bleeding, and they were like so exhausted. And they're like, I can't imagine what your body must be telling you to do something like that.
Yeah, and that's why I ask, is because it's like it is so hard to imagine that I'm trying to liken it to something like a restless leg, or maybe the hiccups, or like an eye. The closest thing I maybe have encountered are like the hiccups or an eyebrow, eye kind of, you know. But that you don't, to my knowledge, catch, you know.
Yeah, well, and that's what this is very confusing, because I don't have any way to tell you how people were catching this. They didn't know. No one. We're going to talk about causes, but that part, the contagion of it all, I can't even begin to speculate about that.
Okay.
So this proved to be the climax of the bizarre affliction. These 400 people in this like dancing hall. I've seen conflicting reports here, but there are people that are believed to have died from exhaustion as a result of dancing for days and weeks on end. And at this point, it was believed to be 15 people a day
dying.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was people of all ages too. You had older people who, I'm sure their bodies were much more fragile, and it's not like at this point people were that healthy too. I think they'd been through a lot, and so, you know, you're maybe already hungry and dehydrated, and your body is doing this against your will. And what a bizarre and torturous way to pass.
And when dehydration, it doesn't matter what shape, how old, what your physiology is, like, you're that active and you're not drinking water or eating.
Yeah, completely. So that's horrible. So I definitely wanted to put that in there, because it's an easy thing to make light of and to kind of joke about, but these are real people who were going through something really, really terrible and mysterious, and I'm sure must have been really scared not knowing what was going on. But as September rolled around, dancers began to regain their autonomy, and the plague disappeared as mysteriously as it had come.
Like they literally just up and walked away.
They just stopped. Yeah. Gradually just stopped. Now, Bailey, would you believe me if I told you this was not the first time this had happened?
No. Wait, what do I believe? I don't even know. I'm trying to process the fact that this has happened more than once. Seriously?
Yeah. In fact, this was likely the last of a series of dancing plagues that had afflicted several unsuspecting villages between the 10th and 16th centuries.
This is the last.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like for sure the last ever, but this is the most well documented and typically considered the last of these events.
This is a little ominous, suggesting that it could happen today.
It could. What's more, all of the other dancing plagues had occurred along the same 2 rivers throughout the centuries.
Weird.
The other most prolific plague was in 1374 along the Rhine River, and several others occurred along the Moselle River.
Do you think, I mean, without knowing what caused this, but if it was like an idea sort of situation, you know, people travel along rivers, right? Especially back then, rivers like were a primary means of commerce. And so like maybe you tell people, you're like, you'll never believe what I just saw. What's happening in this village upstream or downstream, wherever they...
Well, I think that is the common thread that people are using to try to figure out what happened, that it just doesn't make sense for it to occur only along these 2 rivers and kind of nowhere else in the world. Mm-hmm. So I think everyone is thinking it has to be something with these rivers. Mm-hmm. So you may think there obviously has to be something in the water in this region to make these people in the villages dance against their will to the point of injury or death. Mm-hmm. That may very well be the case, but the cause still very much remains a mystery to this day. But alas, there are theories. Would you like to hear them?
Every single one, and then some.
Okay. One popular theory is group food poisoning.
What kind of food poisoning? The only food poisoning I've gotten has very different side effects than that.
Yeah. The ergot fungi, it's ERGOT. I would have said ergo, but I just looked it up. Ergot.
Ergo. I think of the Matrix.
So, apologize. My deepest apologies if that's incorrect.
I think ergot sounds right. I was recently listening to a podcast that talked about the witch trials and that as a means of a cause for the hysteria or whatever it was.
That's exactly right. Okay, so you have hit the nail on the head. So this fungi frequently grows on grains such as rye and has toxic and psychoactive properties. If the contaminated rye was used to make bread, it would have had a major psychoactive effect on anyone who consumed it. The main psychoactive product of ergot fungi is ergotamine. Ergotamine?
Sounds good. Sounds right.
Yeah. And is structurally similar to LSD.
Oh.
It's actually the substance from which LSD-25 is derived.
That is intriguing because I know very little about drugs, psychedelics, any of it. Can those trips last a while?
Well, that's one of the reasons people have poked holes in this theory. Is that likely dancing wouldn't have been, like this compulsive movement. We say dancing, but it's really just a compulsive movement that these people were being forced to go through. Mm-hmm. But they don't think that this dancing would have been such a common side effect for everyone. There would have been an array of reactions that happened. Mm-hmm. And you were exactly right. Ergot is what we think caused the Salem witch trials. Hallucinations, paranoia, stuff like that was totally reasonable, matches up with what would have happened if these people were consistently consuming all of this tainted rye. Mm-hmm. So the theory does sound compelling, though. It makes sense. However, apparently those poisoned by the fungus couldn't have danced for so long like they did, like I just said. And there would have been an array of reactions, not just the compulsive movement. Mm-hmm. So this theory also doesn't explain why every outbreak happened along those 2 rivers, which Wikipedia tells me have very different climates and crops.
Fascinating.
Yes.
I'm not looking at a map, and I have no idea mentally where those 2 are without looking. But
yeah, well, and then I don't know where all the villages are located along those rivers either. Yeah. Another popular theory, which I think holds a little bit more weight to it, is that this was a case of stress-induced mass hysteria.
Okay, I could understand. Go on, but I have questions.
As you can imagine, life back in 1518 was stressful. There was famine, there were smallpox, there was syphilis, that we didn't understand how it was spreading. Mm-hmm. In short, there was a lot to be worried about back then. It was a dangerous time to be alive. When people are under extreme stress from things like that, there can be a mass psychogenic disorder. And add on the fact that this is a group of people in the Holy Roman Empire, and local beliefs at the time may have exacerbated any existing stress resulting from famine, disease, etc. For example, at the time, the local belief was that those who failed to gain the favor of Saint Vitus,
Sure.
the patron saint of epileptics and dancers, would be struck by a fit of uncontrollable movement. So this plague is sometimes referred to as the Saint Vitus plague.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So you're already going through famine, you're already going through disease, you're losing people in your village, incredibly stressful time. Then add on top of it, you think you're being punished for something by, a divine power. That's going to be even more stressful.
Yeah, you are going through a mental break.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it kind of makes sense. But we may never really know what happened to cause so many people to dance themselves to injury or death. But no matter the cause, the bizarre disaster will forever be a mystery to podcast listeners and historians alike.
It is really strange when you think about it. It's easy, I think, the way I've heard it told, to write it off as, oh, mysterious dancing plague. But you're like, no, think about what it takes for you or any individual to up and dance for 5 minutes, 15, an hour.
Yeah.
Then what it takes for that person to dance for days. Then what it takes for 400 people to dance for days. And you're like, this was a thing. This was a thing with scale and magnitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like in the beginning and at different stages of this like plague or of this disaster, that the people in charge of, around the village were taking people like miles away to be treated, or so they could show respect to Saint Vitus so that they might be cured from this. And
I guess, did they... It sounds like treatment was encouraging the dancing, like to get it out of their system, but did they try not to, like...
Well, and I think they were just trying to...
Of the venue,
I think they were
whatever.
just trying to figure out what was going on, because if it's bizarre to us now, it must have been really weird to see back then.
Yeah.
And I also read that back then was when physicians would have been studying the humors of the body, and so several thought that their blood was too hot, and their humors were out of alignment, and so
leeches,
if they played the right music, what was that?
Stick some leeches on them. Yes,
yeah. If they played the right music, gave them the right environment, they could dance their humors sort of back into into alignment, into where they needed to be, which is like a very oversimplified way of trying to explain what some of these physicians thought. But it's also not, I'm not that familiar with medieval medicine.
I mean, very few people are, I would have to imagine. But now that you think about it, though, if they had lo-fi music, just some real steady, or just in general, you think now, you're like, wow, how can I de-stress? Sometimes it's listening to music, like a melody, something that calms you down or allows you to not far off is what I'm trying to say here. Like at first I kind of scoffed at it, but then I was like, oh, but wait.
It's not the worst idea.
Yeah, that's how I deal with my stress and anxiety sometimes. It's like finding the right beat, the right music outlet.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just as bizarre as it is tragic for all these people who suffered for weeks. And
I have to say, I think you have officially given me a new kind of paranoia, a new disaster that I hadn't thought about occurring. I was literally thinking about sinkholes the other day, and now this will detract from my sinkhole fear because I love dancing, as I've stated before. And so what happens if I start dancing and then I just don't stop?
You will die.
Apparently, yes. But I think it's that because I can't comprehend what that must feel like. How do you know when it's going to happen? Is it going to happen to you? How do you prevent it? You don't know. We don't know what caused it. It's all these questions. My mind is racing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions about this.
Yeah, for
There'll
sure.
probably never be any answers.
Unless it happens again.
Gosh, I hope not. I can tell you the last time I had restless leg when I took my Unisom, I was like, wow, this is the worst thing to ever happen to me.
But that's what's bananas to me is like, really? We're going to say that that was the last time it ever happened in history? That doesn't seem... I mean, maybe. It totally could be, but like, it feels a little more on the side of like, we're ready for the big one, the big earthquake, the big whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just such a weird, weird thing that happened. But that is the dancing plague of 1518.
Well, thank you, Madison. Thank you for sharing the story or the disaster, the details of the disaster that was the dancing plague.
Of course. Happy to.
Well done. Well told.
I've stunned you, and
You
that's
have
great.
stunned me. You have absolutely stunned me. Dear best friends, do you share the same passion for dance?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know how else to involve people.
If you also know of a truly bizarre disaster, we'd love to hear it.
Yes. All disasters.
Yeah.
Any and all disasters. You know where to find us. Email in the show notes down below. As always, we appreciate you listening to this and other episodes. Wink, wink. In case you're not caught up, in case you're new to the podcast, welcome. Go listen to other episodes.
Yes, please. We love having more best friends in our podcast circle.
Always.
If you enjoyed, and even if you haven't, rate, review, subscribe. And we love feedback, and we love your emails.
Truly, truly, we do. We appreciate it all, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you, talk to you, hear you. No, we don't hear you. You hear us.
We'll catch you next week.
We'll catch you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.